It's big. It's ugly. My wife really doesn't care for it, and I'm always playing with it when I'm on the couch. We're talking about my reloading station, of course, and that's what we're going to be discussing today on Red Lake Outdoors. Okay, so maybe I lied. Maybe it's not quite as big as I said it is. Anyway, this is what I like to use when I'm reloading. So I can reload in the house in front of the TV and watch the YouTube channels that I like to watch. This is made completely out of scrap lumber. So there you see, like for instance here, the cut there and everything. This was some lumber we had for like 20 plus years. We had used it for forms for concrete for footings that on a building my dad was building, and he had stored it and kept it. We were both pack rats, and he'd stored the remnants in one of our buildings and everything up there, one of his buildings, and that's what I built this out of. And I'll say this thing is not square, or at least the bottom's not square. I built the top first, and I built it with the intention of having enough room for one in here that I could, if I wanted to put a one of those electric powder measures or dispensers, I could put that in there. Probably not ever going to do that, but I wanted to make sure I had enough room for that. The other thing was having enough room here for my arm on my my lever on my press, my reloading press. I did not have this particular press at the time, but I had another older elite press that had a straight lever on it, so I made sure that would fit. So I believe this is, if I remember correctly, this is 14 inches tall on this top piece. I've got a 8-inch wide top here with a 14-inch wide bottom. Like I said, none of this is square. Part of that is me just not taking care when I basically slapped this together, but it's also, every bit of this was warped. Like I said, most of this lumber was like over 20 years old, and it would have been better, I think I would have liked it better to have the base built out of plywood as well. It had more room, but I just didn't have that much plywood. Like I said, this was all scrap. Anyway, I think I'll kind of just demonstrate to you and show you how this works for me when I'm sitting on the couch and reloading. I think I'll go through and reload 10 rounds of 44 Special. I will say here from the beginning, I'm not an expert at reloading. I consider myself a novice, but so take that for what it's worth. Anything I say or anything you see, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I just want to show you how this reloading bench works for me. Other thing on the dimensions, this thing is 2 feet wide, and I remember I had made the base so that it's 18 inches high. This top part would be great it would work out great for a mobile reloading stand. I mean, you could use it on a reloading, or you could use it on a firing range bench, or you could use it on the back of a tailgate of a truck. Anyway, just something to think about. Well, let's get to reloading. So we're going to start by depriming and resizing this 44 Special nickel-plated brass. This is some Starline brass. This was Underwood ammo. I've already reloaded these casings at least once, if not twice. Not real big on the nickel-plated brass. It's stiffer than regular brass, and I can already tell it's not going to last as long. I've had a few that have cracked on me. go ahead and clean the, make primer pockets out. Make sure they're clear. I don't clean or trim my brass casings for pistol cartridges, straight wall pistol cartridges. Now we're going to move on to priming the cases. I've got this Frankford Arsenal hand primer. I really like it myself. I used to have a long time ago the Lee version. It was good. It was all right, but I actually like this one better. This one has an adjustment on it here for setting for your primer depth. Now we're about to move on to flaring the case mouth. I might as well show you on these Lee breech lock Challenger press with the breech lock dies. I really like these and how easy they are to change out. We'll start flaring the case mouth. So now we're going to move to putting powder in our cases, and I'll put a bullet on top there. The bullets we're using, I'm using these HSM bullets. It's a Keith type bullet, semi-water cut or Keith type. It's not exactly like a Keith because it's got a bevel base, but I like these bullets. They're 240 grains. Will go in my interpretation of a Skeeter load for the 44 special. This 240 grain bullet on top of 7.5 grains of unique. I'm using a Lee Perfect powder measure here. These are okay. They're not the greatest, but they're okay. They're about 25 bucks a piece, and you can get them dialed in to where they work fairly well. They especially work well with ball type powder. They don't work as well with a flake type powder like this, like unique, but they do okay. And as long as I'm using a Frankford Arsenal digital scale to double check my charges, and so as long as we fall within say 7.3 to 7.5 grains, I'm good with it. And there's 7.1. That one's a little low. I normally like to go through first, and I'll run a few rounds through here when I first start just to make sure where I want to be. There at 7.3, so we'll go with that. And I don't necessarily always check all my charges when I'm reloading in bulk. I usually check 10 to 20% of them though. And I'll put a case there, and I'll usually put let's go ahead and set the bullet on top of it to know that I've already loaded it. Help me remember. There, settled out 7.4 grains. $7.4, I'm good with that. Like I said, as long as it's in the 7.3 to 7.5, I'm happy with that. The guns I'm shooting this in are 44 Special or Ruger Blackhawk 44 Specials, flat tops, and they can definitely take the Skeeter load plus some more. Now when you finish putting your powder in, I only mention this because I've done this before, remember to turn your powder off before you pull it off of there, and before you pull that off of there, the hopper, be sure and empty it back into your, what's already in there, back into your can of powder so you don't spill that everywhere. That should be it. Let's see. Oh yeah, we're good. Next, we're going to be seating our bullets. I like to seat these down to the crimp groove. Still above the minimum overall length for the cartridge. If I remember correctly, that's 1.45 inches off the top of my head. If I'm wrong, somebody can tell me about it. Now we got the factory crimp die in there. We'll be crimping the cartridges. There is a little bit of flex there. That could be taken out by putting another piece of plywood in here. I don't really see the need for it at this point. So now we have our finished cartridges. Let's double check, make sure they meet the minimum overall length, and they do. So I like to check 10 to 20% of them. There's 20% right there. Last check I like to make is make sure these will work and fit in the revolver. No issues. So I'll go ahead and put these in one of my cartridge cases. And then I like to clean up when I'm done. Some folks might not like this, the way I do this, but I like to clean up when I'm done with a dust buster. And there we have it. Until next time, have a good day.